Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's got the best sound of them all? Yes, that's right, me. That's right, with the Fender X2. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's got the best sound of them all? Mirror, who's got the best sound of them all? What do you mean, not me? What do you mean? My friend, he's got a PRS Tremonti? And it's louder than my X2? It may even sound better? Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's got the best sound of them all? Why, yes, that's right, me. Once again. Yes, with that superior clean tone coming from a 12-inch speaker and 15-watt tube amp. Very similar to the PRS Tremonti. But with a superior clean tone, obviously, my setup sounds better. Thank you, mirror. Hi guys, this is guitarist Dennis and I'm in my home studio, and I want to welcome you to Bargain Bin Amps number 19. And this time around, it's the Fender X2, Super Champ X2 combo amp versus the Fender X2 Super Champ head and 12-inch cabinet. Now, the little 10-inch, Now, the little combo amp has a 10-inch speaker, stock speaker. and the amp head has a 12-inch speaker. Does it really make a difference? Well, we're going to find out. Okay. So here, first of all, is the Super Champ X2 combo amp with a 10-inch speaker. And we're just going to cover channel 1, which is the kind of blackface clean sound. Playing it on the neck pickup, and if I switch to the bridge position, it's a much obviously brighter sound. Kind of a, you know, kind of. Yeah, it's that kind of real bright, you know, kind of countryish tone type deal. Right? Now, I'm going to switch over to the head and cabinet, and we'll talk about it later, but the difference is astounding. Now here is the X2, similar settings, I guess, with the cabinet, the head and cabinet here. bridge obviously is going to be brighter, right? Here are my thoughts on the Fender Super Champ X2 combo versus the Super Champ X2 head and cabinet. Now, first thing, let's talk about the price. Okay, the Super Champ X2 combo with a built-in 10-inch stock speaker, right, is new, and these are street prices, new, about $399, about $400. Okay, and the separate head and cabinet comes out to about $500. Okay, so about $100 more. And or if you wanted to see it another way, the head itself, new, is $300, and the little 12-inch cabinet, it's the SC112, is $200, so $500. Now these are new prices. Now, you know, of course you can find them used for less, depending. However, I will say that while the head used can be found readily available, what is not as easy to find used is the 12-inch cabinet, and I think there's a good reason for that, and we'll talk about that later. Okay. Okay. First, back to the combo. Okay. Now, had I never played through the head and cabinet, I always found the Fender X2 combo very pleasing to the ear and fine. However, I did consider it a small amplifier, and it is. Now, when I tried out the head and cabinet, on the other hand, well, it's freaking amazing. It takes that little small head and cabinet, and while I recognize the sound as the X2, it was like a big amp sound, you know, and that had to do with that cabinet, the 12-inch cabinet, and it's a really good 12-inch cabinet. It has a 12-inch Celestion, I think it's a G12P80, you know, which I guess in the Celestion world, you know, very similar, if not identical, to the Celestion 7080 speaker, right? You know, which I happen to like quite a bit, really. I think it's a fine speaker. In fact, my Black Star HT40s both have 7080 speakers. You know, now online, okay, there are people who go, oh man, you gotta put, you know, a cream back in there, or a vintage 30 or what have you. You know, and of course those are a lot more expensive, and really the benefits aren't really that much, you know. If any, in fact, I personally, I don't like the vintage 30 clean sound anyway, not very much at all. You know, it kind of sounds thin to me. Anyway, basically what I'm saying is it's a good speaker that's in there. In fact, it's a really good speaker, and I'm really quite impressed. The second thing is it has a closed back, as opposed to the little combos, you know, semi-open back. And it's got a little wood panel there, you know. But it's pretty much an open back speaker, and that makes a huge difference. And what ends up happening is that basically the head appears to be louder, you know, and it really, I've always, considered the X2 kind of a small sounding amp. And I mean, not bad sounding, don't get me wrong, just small amp. If I had to put it in a category, you know, where some amps are in the big amp sound, for me anyway. Kind of like the HT Club 40, the PV Classic 30. I mean, those give you that kind of big sound, the deluxe reverb. Big amp sounds. You know, and I always thought the X2 was a little smaller, you know, and a smaller sound as a result. With that little 10-inch speaker, stock speaker. However, with the head and cabinet, I was really, wow, blown away. It was really a really big sound. I mean, it really sounds like a big amp, you know, and it gets plenty louder. Now, I think for the demonstration, I kind of overemphasize the bass response, because that can handle a lot of bass and is a real kind of bassy cabinet. You got to really turn back the bass a bit. But wow, what a difference. The difference really is night and day. You know, now had I not heard the head and cabinet, I was perfectly happy with the X2 combo. You know, however, the stock speaker, while I love the sound, you know, it farts out on the low end, you know, at higher volume, so you can't get all that loud with it. And I wonder if that wasn't by design. You know, there are people thinking, well, you know, they'll buy the X2 and then realize that the low end isn't all that great, and so they'll buy the cabinet or something. I don't know. You know. So, from that standpoint, it really makes a difference of night and day. Now, here is a thing to consider. I mean, obviously they both have the X2 sound, you know, which is this real clean sound, real chimey, Fendery sound. And the bass cabinet is no exception, you know. In fact, when I first plugged it in, I thought, oh man, all the Fender chiminess is gone, right? But then I looked at the amp head, and the treble is all the way down, so of course it's going to sound super bassy, you know. Super bassy without the chime. But when you turn that up a little bit, it's bad. It doesn't ruin, you know, that little Fender chiminess cabinet. I mean, they did a really good job as far as cabinet. And it's small and compact, but it's really good, you know. I was afraid, oh boy, here we go again. Here's another cabinet, you know, with some kind of Fender-made speaker that we're going to have to replace, you know. And, no, that's not the case at all. I think, I can't imagine anybody not being happy with that speaker and with that cabinet, you know. And one of the big differences is definitely open back versus closed back, you know. It's definitely a different sound, you know. And the closed back sounds a little more punchy, you know, whereas the kind of open back is kind of more airy a little bit, you know. But for me, in fact, that's why I like the Black Stars so much, you know, because they're closed back, you know, or at least, okay, semi-closed back, I think, you know, but I like kind of the closed back cabinet. No, I guess it is actually closed back, but it's got a little vent, you know, for the heat of the tubes and so on. But we're not here to talk about the Black Stars. We're here to talk about the Fenders. So, overall, it really brings the X2 into a bigger amp sound. Now, here, let's talk about some of the differences between the two. Very first thing, and it's just kind of common sense, but it's things that I've noticed, is, and in fact, this is why the original owner of this amp wanted to get rid of it, really, is for this particular reason, and that is carrying it around. Okay? And it's not that it's heavy, you know, far from it. In fact, the speaker cabinet is, I think it's about 28 pounds. It's very, very light, you know, especially with the handle. I mean, it's effortless. And in fact, the little amp head as well, you know. But here's the thing. He just wanted to carry his guitar, you know, in case in one hand and the amp in the other, and that's it. Right? And the little Fender X2 combo does that great. And you would think that the head and cabinet would be easier, but no. And the reason is very simple, obviously. You can't really carry your guitar when you have the amp head in one hand and the cabinet in the other, right? And if you're playing in stereo, you know, and you've got two of them, well, that's two heads and two cabinets, right? In other words, that's, you know, if you're unloading a van or something like that, you know, for setting up for a gig or something, well, that's more trips, back and forth, back and forth. So I guess it's kind of a convenience thing, is that the little X2s, combos, you know, are just very convenient because you can just carry them. And here's the other thing. And this seems like real simple stuff, but it makes a difference. And that is, when you're dealing with a head and cabinet, and this happens all the freaking time, I should know from experience, believe me, is you forget the cable, right? So you're bringing your amp and head, or, you know, the amp cabinet and the amp head, and you're all ready to play, and then guess what? Oh man, I left the cable to connect the two at home, and you can't just use a guitar cable. It has to be a speaker cable, you know, because those guitar cables, they'll heat up on you and stuff. It's really bad, you know, bad for the tone, bad for the cable, bad for the amps. But you have to have the speaker cable, and if you forget the speaker cable, you know, it's one more thing to deal with. And you know, when you're doing a gig, you want to keep it as simple as possible. You know, and the more complicated it is, the more things you have to keep track of. You know, and that's the thing. That's the convenience, again, of a little combo amp. You know, bring it there. Now, here's the other thing. without question, if you're just dealing with the sound between the two amps, okay, I'm sorry, but the head and cabinet, they do eat the little combo for breakfast. I mean, it's just, again, night and day, you know. Whereas the little combo, the little 10-inch speakers, pretty good, but, you know, the low end is real small sounding. And with the cabinet, it's astounding the difference. It all of a sudden sounds like again, like I said, a big amp as opposed to a small amp. Now, with that being said, I spent a lot of times just playing the little X2 combo, and it's very satisfying sound-wise, you know, because it's not a bad sound, don't get me wrong, it's a really good sound. And I really enjoy just being able to, you know, the simplicity of it. You know, you just turn it on, pick up the guitar and play for a little while, you know. It takes you away or whatever. You know, relaxes you, what have you. It's very enjoyable. And the sound is very good, you know. And on top of that, you know, if I really wanted a big, you know, huge sound at the moment, sometimes I want to play, you know, kind of softly and, you know, just play for enjoyment or even recording, you know. You don't need a ton of volume and things. And if I did, I would, you know, play through my bigger amps. So in that sense, the little combo is really great in that sense. And there's another reason, too, that I like the combo. And that is obviously the convenience, the portability of it, but also for coffee house gigs. That's what I call them, and I think I've mentioned this before. That they don't want you bringing a ton of amps and cabinets and, you know, all kinds of stuff for these little coffee house gigs, you know. Where basically, you know, you're pretty much, people want to be able to talk over the music, you know. They're a coffee house, you know. So they want the music, but kind of just as a mood and atmosphere. And, you know, as I told you once, I brought my full setup. Because it was the first time I played there, and I didn't realize that it was a coffee house gig, so I brought everything, you know, these huge cabinets and pedalboard, and they freaking put me outside on the porch, and people were listening from inside, because it was, you know, it was way too loud. That was such a strange experience, and it taught me a really great lesson. And this is why, again, the little combo amp, you know, it's kind of discreet, right, and it's a real simple thing, you know. You put it down and people don't even, you know, think much about it or think, boy, what a distraction. Whereas I think, if, you know, and I play in stereo at those little coffee house gigs to set that mood and atmosphere. And so it's 2 amps, and it's just really nice to be able to just walk in with 2 little combo amps that they hardly notice, you know. And it gets a great sound with it, you know. And that's the thing, if you're not comparing them side by side, you know, you're not really going to miss it. You know, unless you're trying to get a big sound, you know, then you'll definitely miss it. But for most playing, you know, you certainly get used to it so quickly, you know, because it's a nice balanced sound on the combo. And the head and cabinet as well, though I have to admit, it's a little bassy, you know, so you really gotta tone down the bass a bit. But it's a great sound, man. I was really blown away. Very much puts, I mean, I put it up there with a deluxe reverb as far as volume goes, you know, and sound as well. It's got that really big, thick sound, you know. And I think what's one of the great things with the head and cabinet is that you don't lose the chiminess, the Fender chime, but also the clarity. You know, that makes the X2 so popular, really. You know, and to be quite honest, who the heck wants to deal with freaking, what is it, 10 tubes or something in the deluxe reverb? You know, and it's really heavy. This is much lighter, and yeah, I really like that sound. Now, I have to say, I also have a PV Classic 30, and that one doesn't have the Fender chime. It's more of a Marshall type clean tone, you know. And that one's real compact too, and that's a big sound, and that's 30 watt tubes. And I think, if anything, the X2 with that 15 watts, it's super loud and things, you know, but you've got to kind of turn it up. And in a way, I kind of wish it had 30 watts, you know, when you're trying to get a big sound, but it's plenty loud. Okay, so those are kind of the pros and cons of both, you know. And that's the thing, I don't know why, but I always thought that, oh, well, if you have a head and cabinet, you know, it'll be much, you know, much simpler portability-wise and things, because you don't have to carry the speaker, you know, with the amp, so it's not as heavy, right? But, you know, you have to make more trips. And it's a little more complicated, you know. You've got to keep track of the cable between the amp and speaker. And, you know, and when you're packing up for a gig, it's so easy to forget something like that. You know, especially if you're dealing with a pedal board, you know, or a rack case full of stuff and cables and things, you know, besides your guitar cable. You know, so, and that does, it makes a difference. And what I realized too is that while the little amp head is, you know, is real light, you still have to carry the speaker cabinets in. Now the pros are this, for the amp head and cabinet. One, the sound is astoundingly good. Better than the combo. I'm sorry, it is. You know, you've got this real big low end, and it sounds like a big amp. Okay? The other thing is, one, you can get all these amp heads, different amp heads, you know, and they're cheaper than combo amps, and you've already got the cabinet, you know, that'll work with other amps too. You know, it's a great cabinet, you know. And while it's only a 1x12 and kind of small, it's a really great sound. So that's another thing, you know. And I mean, that's kind of the trend right now. Is, you know, you can buy little mini amp heads, you know, everything from Marshall, EVH, Joyo, PRS, so on and so on. In fact, my friend in Indianapolis, besides his PRS Tremonti, you know, he's also got an EVH or Joyo, and yeah, and he uses, I think, the same cabinet, you know, on there. Now in this particular case, it's a matching cabinet as far as looks go, you know, and you know, it doesn't look like a Marshall half stack. I mean, it's kind of smaller, you know. It's not as small as those little, you know, mini Marshall stacks, those little tiny, tiny ones. You know, it's kind of in between the two. You know, when you put the head on top of the cabinet, which is real nice. You don't have to remove the handle. You know, they did think of that, which is nice. Because a lot of times when you want to set a head on a cabinet and the handle's in the way and it won't go down, and you don't want the amp head wobbling on there, so it's got the clearance to do that. So that's one thing. The other thing is, let's say later on you want to get a different amp head, just to change or what have you, and you can still use the cabinet, of course, and now here's another thing. Obviously, if you have an amp head, it doesn't mean you have to use the 1x12 cabinet, And say you want even a bigger sound, and you get a 212 cabinet, or even a 412 cabinet, So different size cabinets, and portability is about the same. I mean, you still have to take those cabinets in. So it's kind of a trade-off. And in this case, because the amp is light to begin with, it's not that big a deal. But when you get into larger amps, a combo amp, like the freaking Fender Twin, right? 2x12 speakers. I mean, just the weight of it is crazy, right? So obviously to have that in a head and cabinet makes it much more portable because it's not as heavy, But same thing, you're going to make more trips and that kind of stuff. Okay. So taking those things into consideration, which is better? Well, it depends. Depends on the situation. Now if you just want a grab and go amp, as they call it, you're just going to go over to a friend's house and things, I think that'd be a pain in the butt to, okay, I gotta get the cabinet, hold on, I gotta go get the amp head, and that kind of thing, We just want to go over to a friend and just play, It's, the little combo is going to be great for that. I guess there's a trade-off. If you're going for pure sound, and you want that big sound, the big Fender sound, obviously the amp and cabinet are better, but the X2 by itself is pretty darn good too. You're just not going to get as much low end. Now, of course, as I said, you can hook up a cabinet as long as it's an 8-ohm cabinet on the combo, just as much as the amp head. I mean, they're identical as far as that goes. So maybe you could have the best of both worlds with a combo and a cabinet. That's one possibility. But when you put them side by side, obviously the amp head and cabinet wins, tone-wise. Or I shouldn't even say, maybe tone-wise, maybe just on the low end, but it gives you a startling big sound. And I think it gives you the appearance that the amp head is louder when it isn't. The amps are the same as far as wattage and so on. So, I don't know. Let me know your thoughts if you think a combo is better, or is the amp and head better, Now, another thing to consider, I guess, is this. Let's say you're playing in stereo and you've got two of the combo amps as opposed to the two head and two cabinets. With the amp heads, and I found it really useful, where the speaker is, the amp head doesn't have to be. So in other words, if you want to put a speaker across the room, and yet, you're across the room, and you want to have control over the settings and so on. You could even stack two heads, one on top of the other, and then have the two speakers on opposite sides of the room. Whereas with a combo amp, if you have two combo amps, opposite sides of the room, obviously you would have to go to one, set the settings, walk over across the room, have the settings, set the settings on the other, and that kind of thing. So in that way, the amp head is more convenient. Yeah. And I mean, I guess a lot of these things are common sense things, but, over time I've learned definitely the pros and cons of it. Just the convenience of just walking in with a little amp and you're ready to go, Whereas the amp and cabinet, it depends. I mean, I guess you could always get a gig bag or whatever and, carry your guitar and then have your amp and cabinet, one on each side, you could do that. But if you're playing in stereo, that's like two amp heads and two cabinets, as opposed to two combo amps. And it's besides me, why did they put a 10-inch speaker in the little combo? I guess to keep it small and to make it, an alternative, I guess, to the Fender Princeton, which is also 15-watt tubes and a 10-inch speaker. But I mean, nothing prevents you from taking the combo, disconnecting the speaker jack here on the back and plugging in, plugging into a cabinet. There you go. But if you're just going for sound, obviously the head and cabinet are better. I think I've mentioned that already. So, yeah, I was quite surprised at the difference. It's really amazing, And, I guess there are pros and cons to each one. Now, one thing that may make a difference with the combo, and I haven't tried it yet, but I'm going to. Now, one thing that may make a difference with the combo, and I haven't tried it yet, but I'm going to, and that is changing out the speaker to something, a better speaker, like a Cannabis Rex or something like that. And I would think that would bring you probably closer to the head and cabinet sound, even though it's a 10-inch speaker. Because that's the one flaw, I think, of the stock speakers, the low end, it doesn't handle it all that well. I mean, you can tell, too. I mean, if you look on the back of this speaker, compared to a Cannabis Rex, speaker in eminence speaker, look at the magnets, and on the little X2, I mean, the magnet's about that big on the little 10-inch speaker, whereas on the Cannabis Rex, it's like this big, a lot bigger. So, and it can handle more, though I mean, I've yet to try it, so, but I probably will. Yeah. Some saps sold me an X2 with not a blown speaker, but an abused stock speaker, so that's probably one I'm going to change out, and if I do, yeah, I think I'm going to try the Cannabis Rex speaker. So, yeah, the truth is I can't really recommend one over the other. It depends, on what you want to do and what's more convenient for you, Now, if you're not, if you're just going to keep it in your room and things, then I would recommend the head and cabinet. In a way, On the other hand, if you want to play, and that's the thing, the X2 combo can get loud as well. That's the thing. Yeah. I was gonna say, if you're in a little bedroom, and you want to play quietly and things, the combo would be better. But that's not true, because the 12-inch, speaker on there, and you can turn down the amp head. I mean, it's the same amp. So, yeah, very interesting. I can't say one's better than the other, but there's no question that the 12-inch cabinet just gives you a really fantastic sound, as if you're playing a really big amp. But that's not always ideal in all situations, and like I said, when it's not side by side, you don't notice how staggering of a difference it is playing through the little 10-inch speaker versus the 12-inch cabinet. And again, the open back versus closed back sound. The closed back is obviously a tighter bass and a little more punchy, kind of, almost like a little, I don't know if you've ever played a Black Star, and they're real compressed kind of sound, which I really like, but that's what the closed back cabinet, that's kind of what it sounds like in comparison to the more open back, kind of airy 10-inch speaker. But when I have them side by side, I realize, man, the little X2 combo, sounds small. And yet it's a great sound. They both have the great sound, but it does sound small, in comparison. However, when they're, if you're just playing the X2 by itself, it's a great experience. It's a lot of fun. So very interesting. So the truth is, I'd recommend both, and then you can do what you want. Or I suppose, the difference between carrying the head and the little combo is not all that different, It's a little heavier, though, the combo is, but that way, you can unplug the speaker and just use the combo, without the internal speaker connected to a cabinet, and you connect it to a cabinet. Same thing. See, the problem is that the internal speaker is an 8-ohm speaker, and the amp is expecting an 8-ohm load, right? And the problem is, if you use two 8-ohm speakers, it gives you an impedance of 4 ohms, and that won't cut it, right? Because a lot of these amps, including these, are designed for a minimum load of 8 ohms, right? So, yeah, that definitely won't work, and you don't want to blow up your amp, and it'll cause problems. You could damage your amp if you don't follow those guidelines, to get that 8 ohms. Yeah. So I suppose, if you really wanted to, I guess you would put the internal speaker at a 16-ohm speaker, but it would always have to be connected in parallel, right, with a speaker cabinet that also has 16 ohms, and that would give you 8 ohms. I just don't recommend that. I think that would be so complicated to do, it'd be, I don't know, I'm not sure that'd be, worthwhile and things. you know. And so in that sense, I guess the little amp head and cabinet, you know, and there. And if you don't want to mess with the ohms and things and not damage your speaker, you know, if you get them, you know, I mean, obviously that cabinet is made for that amp head, you know, so, you know, as long as no one's screwed around with it, you'll get your 8 ohm load. Alright, enough of that part. So there we go. Now keep in mind too is I haven't you know, I haven't really played around with the head part of it too much. I guess the one thing I noticed right away is obviously the improved low end and big low end almost. And I'm used to setting, you know, the bass on the combo amp, you know, pretty high. And here I realized you had to scale it back a little bit because it's so bassy. And remember, for the demonstration in this video of the amp head and cabinet, I kind of overemphasized the bass, you know. But you can scale that back as far as the tone goes. Okay, so I guess that's all there is to say about that, you know. You know, I suppose if, you know, if you really wanted to, you know, I could see somebody doing that, certainly. It's like take a little rack case or something, you know, with a couple of shells and put the little, you know, the little heads there if you're playing in stereo, you know, 2 of those little heads, you know, a little rack case. And then, you know, you could carry those and then just the 2 speaker cabinets. I guess another advantage, of course, is, you know, you can use bigger cabinets and things, you know, I suppose. You know, if you really wanted to, you could use a 4x12 cabinet. That's kind of big. And, well, if you need that kind of volume, you know, why are you playing your little 15 watt? Little 15 watt amp, you know, or even amp head, if you know, if you really need that big of a sound. On the other hand, the 4x12 is a glorious thing, you know. Even on the clean, it's just a great sound. I have to give it that, you know, just the you know, you're moving more air, first of all, and the bass, you know, response is really good. It's just a great sound, you know. But what a pain to carry around and things. I mean, I remember even 2x12s. You know, I used to. In fact, I used to play with 4 Marshall 2x12s. Right? And you know what really bugged me about that is that even though they were same model, same speakers and everything, every one of them sounded different. Right? You would think they'd sound identical. Well, no, and no one could tell me why. I mean, I had it checked out, and you know, why are all these amp? They have the same speaker, you know, from the same company, same model, different sounds. Very strange. But beside that, you know, it was really heavy, and that's one of the things is, you know, something to consider if you're playing out and things, is how much gear you're taking along. And I mean, I was doing a kind of looping solo shows and things, and I mean, I have these big racks of stuff and all these cabinets and things, you know, and lots of times it was just me, right? And I'd have the back of a pickup truck full of rack gear and cabinets and all this stuff, right? And I had to unload it and set it up and things. And then I was exhausted, you know, just doing that. And then I had to play for 4 hours or whatever, you know, a real long time, and just so tiring. So, you know, that's something to consider too. Now, if you've got roadies and things, you know, or, you know, people to help you, obviously that's not that big a concern. Yeah. But I can't, you know, depending on the situation, I'd recommend both. You know, and I tell you, before I really tried the amp head and the cabinet, I go, well, why would you buy an amp head? It's so limited, you know, because you always have to bring a cabinet and things, you know, and you can hook up a cabinet, you know, to the combo amp, right? So you've got the best of both worlds, is what I thought. However, I do see very much the convenience of the amp head and cabinet, and the fact that you don't have to have, you know, the amp head, you know, on the speaker necessarily, you know, and that makes a big difference. Yeah. Okay. I don't know that there's all that much to add, you know. And I mean, if you like the X2, you know, you could get it in different configurations, you know, combo, maybe an amp head and cabinet on there. But yeah, definitely the difference with that cabinet, with the 12-inch cabinet, is striking. You know, it's astounding, really, the difference. I mean, pretty amazing. All right, so that's it. See you next time. Okay, bye.